every time we go through that, I'm like, Maricela, we need to make it shorter the next time. So, like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm just gonna say her name one more time, Madeline Gonzalez, because that was one of the most amazing renditions I have heard, and I've heard lots of them. So write that name down, because one of these days she's definitely a candidate for the for the Super Bowl. So I would just endorse her right there. First of all, thank you very much for the Brownsville Chamber of Commerce for having me here. I have what's great about it is I have a really amazing story that I know all of us will be able to be enjoying. I want all of you to be thinking about where you are today and where you are during the next few months, because we are making history in the Rio Grande Valley. And it's not, sometimes people view that Starbase is down at the end of a very ditch-filled and bumpy Highway 4, but it's really made up of people in this community. 80%, over 80% of the people that are working at Starbase are people that grew up in the Rio Grande Valley. And so I'm always most proud to be able to tell people that you can be living in the Rio Grande Valley and be a rocket scientist. Super proud of that. So let me talk a little bit about what is SpaceX. For those of you who haven't heard me before, I feel sorry for some of you that probably haven't heard my talks for the last 3 or 4 times. I told you I'm gonna start a passport book and give you a prize after 6 times or something. I'm gonna have to start working on this. But if anybody knows, a month for SpaceX is like years for other companies. And so things are always changing. And so you're gonna see some exciting footage of what our next missions will be like, and we'll continue to show and talk about how Starbase is evolving. And I'll also give, for anybody that hasn't seen, kind of a little bit of background on Starship, give you a little bit of background on our buildup of our test flights and what's coming next. Okay, next, Maricela. And best of all, I have videos, which are my favorite, because it gives me a chance to take a breath, but also gives you a chance. When I was in NASA, we spent a lot of time showing illustrations, and what's great is you will be seeing real videos of real hardware as we're getting ready, and the multiple flights that we've had just in the last year. So SpaceX was started in 2002. Elon started out just with an engine. He had the Merlin engine, and he decided, I'm gonna, go build a rocket company. And as he says often, he says, the quickest way to become a millionaire is start off with $1 billion and then try to build a rocket company. So it was really, really, really hard. And we've been on this trajectory of just growth, because you start off with an engine, and the next thing you know, you start off with a small launch vehicle, and the next thing you know, you're building off of that knowledge, and the folks that are learning and are just be able to then apply it to the next sequence of activities we have going forward. Next slide. SpaceX just used to be, first time I went out to a SpaceX facility, there was less than 100 people in a multitude of spread out buildings in LA. They had lots of room for a ping pong table and a few other things as the engineers starting out. And every time I would go out, it would become more and more and more packed. And so I always think about that was in that 2006 timeframe. And when you see how we are now spread out across the country, providing communication services, premier 80% of the launch market across the world, and doing it across our country. Next slide. Let's see, there she goes. So as you can see, we always include this little picture of a human there, because you can see we all kind of know what size we are. But then, as you can see, that this is just a picture to me that really exemplifies what I talked about, this evolution of innovation. And so you can see he started off, with the Falcon suite of vehicles, and then building up to Starship. And as you can tell, we're super proud of the Falcon 9 Heavy, but you can see Starship dwarfs that. And what people don't realize sometimes is how much Starship is a game changer for exploration. There's a reason why Elon is investing in this vehicle that nobody's ever built one like it before. And it's because it is what's going to allow us to do interplanetary travel. Next slide. Here's another slide, the kind of the big events. I was lucky enough to be part of the initial Falcon 9 launch that we had. Landing, people would reuse, only vehicle that is fully reusable really enables to be our missions and to be able to quickly get the launch cadence up to where it is. It's one of the reasons why our next mission and having that, us beginning to work on reusing the boosters is very, very, very important to us and our missions for Starship. But as you can see, the following sequence, Falcon 9 Heavy, you saw us moving into the crew missions, near and dear to my heart. And then starting in 2023, the Starship fleet here just right here in the Rio Grande Valley over on Starbase. Next slide. So this is a great picture, but it's also an outdated picture. And anybody, you'll see that I need to have all of my Starbase sequences showing up, but you can see how we're beginning, and this is just from last year, how we're beginning to change what the look of Starbase. Next slide. So what's really, really, really important is, first of all, Starbase, we're trying to develop for the first time a place where you start with raw material on one end and a rocket comes out on the other side of the factory. And then we're able to take it down the road to Massey's and be able to do our critical proof pressure tests, any hot fire tests that we need to do, and then be able to roll it out to the pad. And for the first time ever have full production, test, launch, and then ideally return, and then refurbishment, and then launch again, capability here in the Rio Grande Valley. This is very, very critical because this is really what enables us to be able to get our sequence and the number of flights that we need to be able to do our critical missions. For us to be able to do our human landing system mission, we right now will need to have a sequencing of multiple missions and flights to our depot that will be our fueling depot, and then be able to launch our Starship, go to the fueling depot, have it be fueled up, and then that vehicle then will become the vehicle that goes and picks up our crew members and lands on the moon. All of that sequencing means that we need to be able to launch and land multiple times to be able to get that going. And we've proven that we can do that, obviously, with the Falcon 9. We just landed our Crew 9 booster, the one that's gonna be flying crew to the International Space Station in the September timeframe. We just flew that booster for a Starlink mission, taking it back. 6 weeks later, it's gonna be flying people. So we want to use that same cadence here and be able to get these missions so that we can be able to accomplish our really tough missions that we need to be conducting for our national missions for both NASA and the DoD coming up. Next slide. So this is another example. I think Elon will say he's continuing to be a billionaire that's spending billions on being able to get Starship going. This is obviously, he feels like this is needed for overall, this is what he's giving back to humankind, because he feels like this is what will enable that the human species will continue to be able to, survive no matter what happens here on Earth. That doesn't mean that we don't care about what the Earth's like. It just means that when you look at history over time, we have to be able to start doing these next steps to be able to ensure that if we ever have to leave for whatever reason, that we are starting to lay that foundation. A lot of people go, Kathy, that sounds kind of crazy. And I'm like, well, you know what? There was a lot of people that thought getting in a boat and going across the ocean was pretty crazy. And there was a lot of people that thought going to the moon was pretty crazy. But what we do know is that when you have these goals that are very lofty and challenging, it's what drives the whole basis of knowledge and technology and continues to thrive and push our boundaries farther and farther and farther. So we're investing. We feel like, the Starbase and the Rio Grande Valley are our place to be able to run the Starship program. And so we're obviously investing in the people here to be able to do this mission. Next slide. I'd love to show this picture because it really we tend to show pictures of the rockets and the pads and the buildings, but really it's about the people. None of this would be able to happen without the people. And so just seeing the folks there and being able to, and the numbers that we have, we are actually in the process right now of really beginning another round of ramp-ups because we're bringing another 300 engineers and technicians to the Rio Grande Valley to help us be increasing our cadence for the missions that we have coming up. And so all of this means that we need even more capabilities at Starbase to be able to take care of these people. It's why you see us building more houses, investing in schools in the different areas, looking at how can we continue to bring talent down here and attract as many people to this area because we want the best and brightest working at Starbase. We also are in the process, you go out there right now, where we just stacked our 7th segment for our 2nd tower. And so we'll be bringing on our 2nd launch pad over the next 5 or 6 months. And we really appreciate the port and all the folks that worked with us to be able to get those segments in, and obviously TxDOT and all the folks that helped us be able to work through getting those transports in place. This is another place where it's critical for us as a community to support each other because all this takes us working together to be able to get this mission done. Next slide. The last flight you really couldn't see a lot, but man, could you feel it. I was in South Padre and it was great, and then it was also great just seeing us be able to get the landing where it was, and we all have our new hero is the flap that hung in there till the very end with Starship. But I think what was really fun was to be there with the crowds at South Padre enjoying the mission and realizing that, and I'm hoping that they all felt like it was their mission too. Next slide. Next slide. I'm hoping there's a video here pretty soon, but I'll keep going though, I'll keep talking. So we're gonna go through the next few slides are us really talking about really the succession of the development. The great thing about SpaceX is we invest in hardware and we really have this understanding that you need to go test, fly, learn, fix the problems you found in that flight, and then make the changes and fly again and continue that. And that cycle of innovation is the fastest way for us to go to A to Z. I've worked in an agency and with different companies where you do a lot of analysis. With SpaceX, it's let's just go try it, obviously make sure that it's gonna fail safe. But the worst thing that happens is not a vehicle blowing up, because that is how you learn what the parameters are. And we really epitomize that idea of you learn from your mistakes. And we're not afraid of them. We're obviously going to make sure that we are going to fails in a safe manner for our personnel and the people around here. But we view the fact that we found that failure mode, it allows us then for the next flight to be able to go fix that and then learn again. And so as a team, it really, when you see that cycle and have the flexibility and the ability to make changes quickly, because we do all the production in our own facility, we're able to change that part and be able to take it on a pad and be able to put it in the rocket and then turn it around again and do the testing and keep that all within our facility. It's really a gift. It's a huge gift that the company is able to invest in that, and that we're able to do that. But they wouldn't be able to do that if they weren't trying to drive down the cost of launch. For us, we're always trying to figure out why is that so expensive, and is there a way we can do that cheaper? Because if you can make your hardware cheaper, then it makes it less expensive when you have to figure something out or it doesn't exactly work correctly. So it's a constant thing for us to be always improving, always trying to figure out how to do things better and continuing to learn from each of our missions. And there's nothing like then us going through the next sequence of flights for us to talk about how we've learned from every mission. I'm always glad when the sound works, because it's always way more powerful than, you can really get a sense of what it's like. So what's really, really important is all those sequences, we are continuing to evolve another part of a critical mission that we needed to be demonstrating before we took the next step. So first it was, is the booster gonna work? So if you notice the first launch, not all of our engines fired. In fact, I've never seen anybody do this before, where we launched with less than the full complement of engines working. But we knew we have redundancy. When you got 33 engines on the back end, we were able to actually be able to do that mission, and the decision was made to go ahead and conduct the mission because we were gonna learn from that failure mode. It actually helps you when you understand how is a vehicle really going to react with two of its engines out. You learn a lot of data from that particular failure mode. And then we had to figure out how to do the staging. How do we get the staging right? And getting that hot staging sequence working and then relight of the Starship engines was another huge sequence for us. Us being able to do and be able to target a return of the booster in a particular location in the Gulf of Mexico, and being able to return the Starship to a particular location in the Indian Ocean also demonstrated key things that we need to be able to conduct our orbital missions. We had to, just like you saw the Hopper missions and some of the suborbital flights, those also gave us data for how to build and be able to add tiles and other kinds of thermal protection to the vehicle, and where to have those pieces and how the flaps needed to work. So every mission is really built on the last multiple missions and taking all that learning and moving it forward. Okay, next slide, Marisol. So I talked a little bit before about the flap, and this is another place where it's an example of where SpaceX, we actually left spots open on the vehicle without thermal protection for us to be able to get those worst case models on the vehicle, and also in different spots be able to understand like where the tiles were going to fail, because that helps us then really refine our thermal models and refine the designs going forward. So us being able to have this kind of data, and honestly, we're also very proud of the fact that you had Starlink all the way through this. I've never seen a reentry vehicle like this. I've seen lots of vehicles coming in, and you always have this section where for 2 minutes you pray, because you're waiting for you to go through the blackout zone, and then you're either waiting to be able to spot the vehicle, you're like looking around trying to find it, or see the chutes, and this, you can see this coverage. We were able to show you that we can get Starlink video all the way through, and it was a huge help to us to be able to see the plasma, how the plasma reacted with the vehicle, and us being able to then be able to use that and use that data on our next flight. Here's a video of it coming in and being able to target. You know, this is the first time bringing it all the way down, having all the data that says how you'll be able to, and then being able to pinpoint the entry spot for Flight 4. That was a huge achievement for us. Very, very happy. The team was very, very happy that the vehicle, they were able to, we'd seen how the vehicle had reacted the time before. It did not look like that. This time around, it looked way different. We're very happy with that. It's honestly one of the reasons why we're getting ready for Flight 5, and one of the objectives we do have on Flight 5 is for us to return the booster actually to the pad. It will be huge for us to be able to do that, because then it really enables that process that we talked about being able to bring the booster then straight back to the production area, work through refurbishment, and really help us then reduce the cycle time in between our builds. So we have a simulation coming up of what this is going to look like and what it's going to sound like, right? A little bit. And get everybody ready. It's going to be very, very, very exciting for us if we can manage to get the booster back and be able to catch it in the chopsticks. Those little arms there, they kind of look like pterodactyl arms. Those are our chopsticks, and they actually move the vehicles up and down and also capture the vehicles when they come in. So the booster, we're targeting it back, and then when it gets close in, then if you notice the chopsticks are getting ready to quickly kind of snatch it and capture it, and then gently land it on the mount. So what is critical, and we have videos out for the public to be able to see, we'll be showing, we're continuing to educate the public about this, because similar to what we had to do at the Cape when we started returning boosters, we had to let people know that when you're bringing a vehicle back like this, with the speeds that you're bringing in, you will get a sonic boom. And actually that means that it's good. It means it's coming in. If you don't hear anything, it means that there was an issue and we had to land it somewhere else, or we had to break up the vehicle. If you're in South Padre and you hear kind of what sounds like a loud thunderclap, 2 of them, it means we were able to actually get the vehicle back, and we should then be able to be seeing the booster on the pad. I will tell you, we will have a great party that day. If we're able to do that, it will be, our whole team will have accomplished this mission to be able to do something that nobody's ever done before with this size of vehicle. So we're really looking forward to, looking forward to everybody else having the excitement of this too. And like I said, everybody needs to kind of write that one down when we do this, because it is one of the most critical first steps for us to begin then the sequence of activities that we need to have happen to be able to begin our march towards landing on the moon. Next slide. And we're not done there. I mean, if you haven't realized, every single flight is more and more and more exciting for us. We still need to have the Starship orbital mission complete, and us also be able to be landing a Starship. That's going to be another critical part of us being able to conduct our missions. And so each flight, I'll be up here again, you guys, remind you again about the passport, because we'll be able to talk about what we learned from hopefully Flight 5, Flight 6, Flight 7, Flight 8, because all these flights are about us building up our capabilities to then be able to, open up and show you the next step, the next mission that SpaceX will be doing. Next slide. So I know we're going to be doing the panel here, but I wanted to emphasize again how much this is about a community accomplishment. This is not about SpaceX being out at Starbase by ourselves. This is about the people every day that are in the community, that are there doing the welding, that are doing the purchasing, that are doing the design work, that are building our pads, that are working the SPMTs that take the vehicles out to the pad, that are working in the test sites every day in the heat, making sure that our rockets are tested and that they're ready to go for our missions. So once again, I wanted to say thank you for your support. Thank you for what you all do every day to enable us to be able to share our mission with you. And every single one of our accomplishments are your accomplishments. Thank you.